Okay, let's talk about chapter 1, which is Introduction to Operations Management. So topics appear in this chapter 1. I didn't go through, PowerPoint like a slide by slide, but I rather about my own way of summarizing chapter 1. So that's what I have, as you can see. And order might be a little bit off compared to textbook itself. So anyway, so this chapter provides the foundation for the rest of the course, of course, and that explains what operation is and what operations manager do, and how production systems are structured, and all those important uh, concepts for the operations management. So. Um, Talks about operations as a core function, right? So one of the three main functions, we can talk about. Business functions are more than three, but actually they recognize finance, marketing, and operation as a three main functions, right? So without those three, it's almost impossible to sustain in the market. So that's the idea of what they're talking about three main functions, including operations management. Okay. So also talks about role of the operations manager. So operations manager makes decisions, right? And talks about policies and planning, organizing, staffing, directing, those important decision making comes to mind. For example, like a hospital. Okay, we go to hospital all the time, but there's always operations managers are doing behind the scene, right? So in hospital, they need to manage staffs and how to operate their emergency room and how to taking care of patients in terms of patients number, patient wait time, which is very important, and how to allocate resources and labors, right, to specific department, for example. So those are the operations manager. Then we can go on to talk about classifying production systems, and we can categorize by output type, right? Whether it is goods or services or volume and variety, whether it is just mass production versus customized. And then we can categorize into flow structure, how operations are flowing, whether it's continuous, batch, for example, batch number of batches, for example, per day, right? Rather than continuously running your operation, you can have multiple batches. Or whether it depends on the project, right? Special project or prototype project and things like that. And good example for those production system, automobile manufacturing, right? Like a Ford, GM uses assembly line because it's just basically continuous, repetitive, high volume. So that's we can say like a continuous, right? Whereas uh, some custom-made business is like a custom-made cabinet, cabinet makers, right? They build a unique, customer specification rather than creating, manufacturing mass number of products, right? So depending on how you're going to categorize, you can put it into different production systems. Now, a system design and system operation, right here, system design and system operation. System design, when it comes to the system design, we're talking about long-term decisions, right? System operations is short-term or day-to-day operation. Example of the system design, Amazon's make a system design all the time. When it comes to the fulfillment center, whether you're going to build a fulfillment center in certain area. For example, lately I see a couple of uh, new fulfillment center near the Atlanta area. That's south of Atlanta Airport, and I think they're building another one around surrounding Atlanta area. So that's kind of uh, system design, long-term decision making. Whereas same Amazon, they also schedule delivery trucks, right? So that's a everyday decision making, which is system operation. Now, characteristics of production systems. So it talks about key characteristics of production system, including degree of standardization, use of labor versus capital, volume of output, and whether it's customer involved. Okay. Well, for example, when you talk about standardized services, airlines like a Delta, American Airlines, they pretty much have standardized services for uh, certain things, like a safety procedures or seating, right? Uh, that's a pretty much standardized. Whereas there's other areas are personalized in terms of special meal or baggaging handling, or for the first class or business class is pretty much personalized. So that's how much degree of standardization involved in production or services. Now, some issues in operations management, which is kind of what they call it contemporary issues. Issues are rather emerging issues because of technology, most of things, I believe, including global competition, or these days tariffs, right? Tariffs are pretty headache for many countries and quite confusing. We thought we had a free trade with global competition, but turns out we're gonna have some uh, tariffs, and many countries are trying to protect themselves, right? It's a very tough situation in terms of competition and the economy they are facing. Outsourcing, that's another issues. Well, I think outsourcing has been there a long time, last 20, 30 years at least. And this turnaround, same thing. It could be insourcing, right? We try to bring those jobs back. And that's what we call insourcing, right? Outsourcing, we had offshoring, and then see how much we can take advantage of this insourcing. But this again comes down to the budget and costs involved in bringing all those jobs or creating factories in the States. Supply chain, that's another. Sustainability and technological changes. Those are some contemporary issues that emerging last 10, 20 years, and still talks about those things all the time. And operations as managerial. You know, what it's saying is operations management is not just technical. It's fundamentally managerial because it involves planning, involves organizing, staffing, and we need to work with the team, leadership, all those things, controlling quality and costs. So of course there are some technical or quantitative issues, but many of those things are managerial, meaning that you need to make decisions based on sometimes um, sometimes may not be really clear cut. So it can be pretty much unstructured decision making, what they call. There's no answers, no best answers, but we're trying to maximize or minimize depending on. So that's the managerial side of operations management. And also the book talks about historical events relating to operations management. Okay, so I don't think it's really critical compared to other concepts. So it talks about craft production, talks about industrial revolution, scientific management, human relations movement, lean systems, and talks about digital and even including artificial intelligence that can be embedded into operations management. Okay. For example, the lean production, right, or lean system, which is pretty popular, like 1960s and 70s, right, coming from Japan, specifically Toyota manufacturing. They're trying to cut all those wastes and trying to improve the efficiency. And also another the catchphrase is continuous improvement, right? So that's the lean production system that has been going on, a long time. Then manufacturing versus services, right? Where it is tangible or intangible, right? That's the main thing between manufacturing and services, and also supply chain management. Supply chain management lately kind of separated from operations management. Okay, so that's kind of trend. So that's why we have a supply chain management course as a new course. So if you're really interested in supply chain management, just like a enterprise resource planning, and the other one is CRM, which is customer relationship management, right? Those three things are go hand in hand. So that will be very interesting topics as a separate, discipline, we can say, compared to operations management. All right, next thing I want to talk about is role of AI technologies, artificial intelligence in operations management. Again, it does not actually appear in the textbook. I thought it's a very interesting idea because that's what we're talking about every day, right? So if you just turn into any media, this AI technologies is discussed every day. Just cannot get away with AI, these days. So I thought it's worthwhile we talk about AI a little bit so that you can see what kind of roles that AI plays in operations management. First thing area that AI is involved quite a bit in operations management is forecasting and demand planning. So forecasting is a big thing, right? Forecasting is one of the important chapters in operations management. Of course, it requires analytical and quantitative method, but if you borrow this AI algorithms, specifically machine learning, which is just analyzing historical or seasonal patterns and uh, all those data, then they can forecast uh, to improve demand forecasting specifically, which is very important um, numbers for operations management. For example, Walmart, all those retailers are using AI technology to forecast, to predict product demand at even at the local level, local store level. Okay, and I think they uh, trying to go down further so that they can predict down to the shelves, right, shelf by shelf, so that they can kind of predict the numbers for them. So forecasting and demand planning is a big thing with AI. And the other one is predictive maintenance. That's another advantage of AI applications. The sensors, machine learning, detect early sign of equipment failures so the companies can conduct maintenance before things happen, right? So before breakdowns, all those failures may occur, so you can detect earlier. All those technology companies are doing it, including GE, right? Um, GE is really expanding their territory to aviation, right? These days, aviation and energy sectors, so that they can monitor all those turbines or engines, right? With the help of AI systems. And what else we have? Quality control by via computer vision. That's another big thing. Computer vision, image recognition, right? Um, Again, with the help of image recognition algorithms and all those sensors, you can detect or find any problems, issues, inconsistencies in manufacturing before things happen again, right? Because those are very tiny things or very small things we cannot detect by human errors, but AI can. So that's the idea of using AI in this sector. Those new technology they always use, like a Tesla company, they use a vision-based, for example, AI system to inspect for new cars, right? So human beings are hard to detect some of those very sensitive things or very minor things like paint jobs or welding system. I cannot detect easily, but AI with the help of AI visions, that's possible. The last thing with AI is autonomous operation and robotics. That's another huge thing with AI. Because again, that's another downside of human input because we cannot do all those uh, little things as well as things that we need power or need big hands. So AI-driven robotics, you see all those robotics are working, in the factories. Amazon's fulfillment center, for example, and automobile manufacturing facilities. You see all those robots all the time. and especially moving stuff from one shelf to another, and helping with all those inventories. And I think that's saving a lot of human time and efficiency. So uh, that's another huge help from the AI systems. So I just talk about those some important, rather kind of introductory idea of operations management. So let's talk about further in other chapters as we move on to more specific area. So if you have any questions and problems, let me know.